Morning, everybody. While we wait for Aaron, I'm going to be your deficient host. Um, Lisa, if you'll go ahead and get our recording started. Looks like we're recording now. And then Chair Lloyd, if you'll call the meeting to order.
Well, welcome everybody. I'll call the meeting to order and ask the staff to do the roll call.
Thank you, Chair Lloyd. Senator Zolnikoff, Alan Lloyd,
Present?
Senator Harvey, Senator Nolan,
Here.
Representative Etchart, Representative Seckinger. Representative Teal is running late, as we noted. Stacey Anderson, Tanner Avery, Webb Brown, Bob Dean,
Here.
John Harding,
Here.
Jennifer Hensley, Sierra Reesberg, Gail Tronstead.
Present.
Thank you, Gail. And then for staff, you've got the ever capable Jennifer Stallcamp. I see Aaron has joined us, and I'm Kevin Bragg, your licensing bureau chief. I hope you have a good meeting.
Thank you, Kevin. I would ask staff if we do in fact have a quorum or not. I don't know.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We do not. So,
I would ask the next question, what does that mean?
Mr. Chair, I think Jennifer can maybe back me up a little bit on this. Let's try to get Senator Zolnikoff on. That could help. And with Representative Teal, let's see, we need, how many do we have? One, two. There's 5 of you right now. We need 8. So, we can have a conversation. It's just no decisions can be made.
Well, the council is advisory, the task force is advisory, so we can proceed with business
Oh, okay.
As needed.
Standing. Well, I will, I guess if, Aaron, if you could reach out to Senator Zolnikoff, and then maybe we'll give the representative a minute to join as well. I aspire to join one of these meetings in a room that doesn't have the worst lighting on the planet. It's just a life goal. I don't know if I'll get it or not. I think at one more bite at that apple.
I am impressed, Mr. Chair, with your continual opportunity to be backlit, no matter the situation.
I see Senator Zolnikoff just joined. Mr. Chair, we could probably just get
Here.
started, have conversation.
Thank you, Senator Zolnikoff. Yeah, Aaron, if you're comfortable with us getting started, I guess we have a few documents, one of which is I was the author, and so I would defer to you on how you would like to proceed in discussing the options we have before us.
Okay, yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think what we can do, I sent everybody an email this morning with Chair Lloyd's thoughts, and then I also provided a memo that kind of compares the the recommendation options paper that I had sent out not last week, but earlier this week. It may have been last week, I don't remember. And so basically, I think if probably what I'll do is I'll do the comparison first, and then you guys can decide if you want which document you want to review in more detail. So let me share my screen. Okay. So at the last meeting, we had a pretty lengthy policy paper that talked about all of the different, it was a summary of the survey that was sent out with all of the different criteria for a sunset review, which is the whole purpose of this subcommittee. And I can't remember what the paper, shoot, I'm sorry. I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have joined today. The idea was that you guys had asked for some pretty like I guess more narrow recommendations to review based on the survey results, because the survey results weren't conclusive. And so we talked a lot about, a couple different things. And so so that's what that first paper is. Alan's is a little more narrow, a little more pointed. It's an actual proposal. And so what I wanted to do, because they're similar, but there are a few differences, and so we'll just kind of go through the differences, and then you guys can decide if you want to talk, if you need to talk a little more broadly about the policy, then we can review the paper that I put together. If you'd rather just focus on a recommendation, we can look at Chair Lloyd's next. So they are aligned on the core policy direction for this purpose. They both support a scheduled review process rather than a strict automatic sunset. And the final policy decisions are preserved with the legislature. And then both contemplate a process in which DLI and licensing boards provide the basic information, a standard set of information, to the Economic Affairs Interim Committee for discussion and then further action if needed. So the difference is the level of specificity, excuse me. So the paper that I provided has a broader legal and policy choices, including some different options for statutory anchors, alternative review cycles, and then there are some implementation questions in that one. The sunset review proposal that you received this morning is a more concrete implementation model. It has one review cycle suggested, a specific interim committee decision path, some detailed metrics, and all of those. So there's several areas of agreement. Like I said, both documents have suggested review model rather than automatic termination. The legislative ownership is, or the legislature has ownership of the final decisions. Both documents suggest economic affairs as the primary review forum instead of, we had talked about legislative audit or someone else, but both do say that economic affairs is the probably the best house for this, and then both agree that obviously the board will need to provide information, and DLI can support in getting that information for preparation to the review committee. And then both documents do suggest a review of both the administration of the board and license requirements, and so a full Practice Act review. So there are a couple of material differences, and what I put in this is, these are some prompts that you guys can discuss after we go through this. So the recommendation options memo, so that I'll just call that the DLI memo, presents multiple review cycle options, and this was based on the survey. So 8, 10, and 12 years were the most common choices for a review. And this paper, DLI's paper, identifies a working option of a 10-year base cycle with triggers for earlier reviews. And so if something comes up, then the occupation or the board could be reviewed earlier. The proposal recommends an 8-year rotation and calculates that under that there would be about 10 boards or for about 40 licenses per interim for review. And so an issue for this subcommittee is, what do you want? Would you want a more frequent 8-year cycle or 10-year middle ground with some risk-based triggers for earlier review? The next difference is the structure of the recommendations. And so the DLI paper is strictly a policy options document. There's several possible approaches, including review only, review plus legislative response, a soft escalation, or a hybrid review. And the proposal is more definitive. So it recommends that DLI staff do the data collection, present to the Economic Affairs Committee, and then the Economic Affairs Committee would then have four responses: either continue with no changes, request an audit by the Legislative Audit Committee, recommend changes to law or rule, or recommend the sunset of the license. And um, so it's definitive. And so then the issue for this subcommittee is to determine if you want to adopt the proposal's more concrete decision path or retain some flexibility, or if you want to discuss some of the other options that are in that paper. Another difference is the role of legislative audit. So this is actually an implementation issue that's presented in the DLI paper. And the proposal makes audit review optional and committee driven. And so an issue for this subcommittee is whether audit involvement should be requested as part of the initial structure, reserved for flagged issues, or left for further study. Another difference is the burden of proof or standard of review. So the recommendation options memo has a middle ground burden standard. So more restrictive licensing requirements should receive closer scrutiny. The proposal doesn't establish a formal burden standard. It relies on the legislative process and public participation to frame that. And so an issue for the subcommittee, whether the recommendation should include a stated review principle, such as requiring stronger justification for more restrictive licensing requirements. And then the final difference is the statutory framework. So the recommendations, the DLI paper includes the statutory frameworks that are already in place and identifies some possible anchors for it. So where we could just amend the MCA basically, including existing interim committee oversight, board review authority, the biennial reporting, legislative audits authority. There's plenty. It doesn't. Oh, the proposal doesn't analyze statutory authority, but just recommends that the process is consistent with EACS and DLI's reporting structures. And so an issue for this subcommittee is where the final recommendation should sit. So here's some recommended discussion points for you. Again, there's should the final recommendation expressly reject a hard automatic sunset model? I think that question should be answered today. And then, what cycle would you want if you are doing this review cycle, 8 years, 10 years, something else? Should the review process include risk-based triggers for earlier or deeper review? Should DLI data collection be the default first step with audit review available only upon EAC request, or do you want to get audit involved in the beginning, basically, is that question. And then should the final recommendation include a stated review principle that more restrictive licensing requirements require stronger justification? Should the final product include a detailed list of required metrics and questions as is presented in the proposal? And then should the final recommendation identify statutory anchors for implementation, including existing EAC oversight, board reporting, and board review authority? So that's kind of a summary of the two documents, comparing and contrasting. They are very similar. Again, Chair Lloyd's proposal is more detailed. This is what there's one answer to every question, basically. So we can go however you want from here, Chair Lloyd. If you want me to go through the other one, my paper, staff produced paper, it's not mine, I don't care. Or if you want to discuss yours, we can go either way.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I guess the only thing I would say about my document is the intent of it was to build a recommendation based on what I heard from the group throughout our journey. I would not classify my proposal as what I personally would have written had I had all the control in the world. And I think that is probably why our two documents are so similar, because we're both kind of coming from that same place. Um, if the group would be okay with it, I guess my question would be, could we just start with these recommended discussion points and see if we've got some consensus on these, if we could, knock some slash all of these out. Any objection to starting with these 7 questions that we have on our screen right now?
That makes sense to me, Alan.
I think we're good.
Likewise.
All right. Well, let's start with that first question. Should the final recommendation expressly reject a hard automatic sunset model? Any thoughts from the group? I would share my personal thought is that my fear with a hard sunset model is that it forces bills to make it through a process that, sometimes is compressed for time. And I personally would hate to see something just kind of slip through the cracks and result in a license no longer existing. But open to thoughts from others.
I agree with you on that one, Mr. Chairman.
Senator Nolan, I see your hand raised.
Thank you. I think I was one of the ones that was talking about the sunset. We needed to have it, and I'm okay with all the different discussions. So we probably vote on that one unless, like you said, somebody else has heartburn. I don't anymore.
Excellent. Any other thoughts?
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
One thing that think this committee should consider in this is what happens with new licenses. How do those get built into the process? Because as an example, last session, there was a bill for a doula licensing, and it was debated pretty heavily. It went to free conference committee, or maybe just a regular conference committee. I can't remember exactly which type of conference committee it went to, but it was pretty much the last day of session, and the only way that they could get to an agreement was putting a sunset date on it. And so that is something I think you should consider in your recommendation. And I wanted to bring it up now because you have, it sounds like a review process for existing licenses is what you're kind of looking at, but there will be new license types being proposed every session. And so how do you want to handle that? Do you want to have a shorter, like a sunset, a shorter review process, or do you want, if you decide 8 years or 10 years, does that license good for um, that entire length of time and not have to be reviewed for until it comes up in that cycle? So just something for you guys to kind of talk through.
And I see Senator Nolan. Love to hear your thoughts.
Yes, thank you. So the word hard automatic sunset, maybe we take out the word hard. I don't care if we take it out now because I think we're fine. But with Aaron's explanation, we do have those come up. And if we just said a recommended sunset model, because you're right, when we get to the end of the session and we don't know bills are here and something has to happen and it won't pass unless we put a sunset, because that's how a lot of us think. We want to have access to look at it again. So I think you're right. I think it could be on there, but recommended sunset model instead of hard. That, Aaron, you could probably help us with that. Hard means we're definitely going to have something. 22nd of 29 or whatever. Or we could make it a recommended sunset with 4 years or 8 years or whatever.
Thank you, Senator Nolan. I think, Aaron, my initial reaction to that is I feel that the tax credit or the tax credit review process has a similar, aspect to it where whenever a new tax credit is proposed, they formally put it into one of the review classes. And so I think if we were to do the least amount, we would need to require the committee that approves a new license to put it into one of the classes that would allow that group to then decide whether a new license should go, the full whatever number of years the cycle is, or if they wanted to have an earlier review, they could just place it in an earlier review class. And I believe I believe there's been one tax credit where they did that. The default for the tax credits is just to give a new credit the same cycle as everybody else. Um, but there is a little bit of flexibility there. I say that not knowing how the language in the sunset area or the tax credit area is written, but I know that so far that's been an aspect in every proposed tax credit.
And then, so Mr. Chair and committee members, just to kind of piggyback onto that, I think, and this will play into where I don't know, one of these questions about where should this be housed statutorily. So in 2-8-402 is intent to create a new board. And so a draft request to create a Department of Labor and Industry licensing board or program, so basically adding licenses, must include a report that addresses, and there's several things that the that the association or whoever is proposing it needs to come up with some data to be able to justify the existence of this. So that could be a good spot to add in, that any new board or program requires the legislation requires a 4-year review or if 8, whatever you guys decide. Just make it an even number, don't make it 5 because that doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think that's where that could go. And so it would just be, an addition to an existing statute for requirements for new licensing programs or boards.
Excellent. Aaron, would you prefer us to include that in if we're going to vote on a recommendation on this first item? Should we include any language about new licenses or?
I would, yeah, I would just kind of talk through the whole thing now, and under this number 1.
Okay. Well, I would make a recommendation that our final recommendation expressly reject a hard automatic sunset model and instead include a review process that would integrate any proposed license into the process for continual review into the future. Senator Nolan.
Thank you. Did you want to put like a 4-year or 8-year on that?
I was working under the assumption that this was just number 1 and that number 2 would be our opportunity to discuss 8, 10, or other. If we'd like to make those combined, I am more than happy to have the 2 discussions and then make one recommendation there.
How
I
does it
think,
play?
Mr. Chair, for clarification, I think Senator Nolan's asking about the for new licenses, if it should be a different, like a shorter review process.
Correct.
I will say that the doula license, I think, is, and Jennifer or Kevin, you can correct me if I'm wrong or double check me. It's pretty short. It's 4 years, and so that, and I think that was intentional, that because they wanted it to kind of. They wanted to see how the program is working, if there's licensees, and and review it at a shorter, or sooner rather than later.
Excellent. Mr. Harding.
Yeah, so the question for Aaron. So Aaron, when that came around, the dual, I don't even know what that is, by the, can you tell me what that is?
Kevin can. Just kidding.
I don't know if it's that. It's really not
It's
that important. I would just.
no, it's fine. It's kind of a healthcare adjacent field where they work with prenatal, with moms to be, on labor and postpartum,
Oh,
prepartum,
okay.
antepartum, postpartum.
So
Jennifer maybe has a better way to describe it.
that's enough information.
Okay.
I was just curious. I didn't know what that meant. So that came around, you said, toward the end of legislature where they didn't really have time to uh, vet it completely. Did it make sense that they put 4 years on that? Or do you think that should be 6 or 8? Would it,
Um,
as a new program, it would make sense to me somewhat. And for the chairman, I think Aaron explained that properly, where I was thinking in this recommendation number 1 for new licensing programs, potentially should take a look at them after 4 years.
uh,
Um,
yeah.
legislature establishes that, and you go, well, it's a new license. I wonder what that looks like 4 years from now. It doesn't mean it has to be set up for sunset, but they could take a look at it within 4 years.
Yeah, Mr. Chair and Mr. Harding. So I can't remember exactly when the bill was presented. It went through the committees. And it definitely wasn't like it was introduced at the last second. It was introduced earlier. There was just a lot of back and forth on it. Some amendments that were made in the House, I believe, after it had passed through the Senate, and the Senate didn't agree with those amendments, and so it went to a conference committee. Senator Nolan might remember it a little bit more. I can't remember if it went through Business and Labor, or if it went through Health and Human Services. But oh, you raised your hand. Yeah. No? Okay.
I did. Yeah, we did get a chance to look. Oh, Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Mr. Senator Nolan.
Okay, thank you. We did get a chance to look at it, and I do know about that bill. But uh, what Mr. Lloyd was, or Mr. Who was our last speaker, John, the reason we want to have it at a 4 year is so we can see if we goofed or if it makes sense. So we do like to look at it because our constituents say, why did you put it out so far? We don't even like this whole thing. So if we have it a closer look, we can amend based on everybody's comments, yours and everybody else's. So we like the 4 year thing. So that's one of I would like us to do that, but obviously I'm open to anybody's suggestion. But when things get down to the crunch time, we don't. If we can't look at it, we'll either kill it, and if it's a good bill, why kill it? But if we put a sunset like we were talking about earlier, so we can review it. So that's my take on it.
Thank you, Senator Nolan and John, for your comments. I think just my personal feeling here is that 4 feels like the appropriate amount of time, and assuming that this review process would give an opportunity to either amend or remove. Uh, that feels like an appropriate amount of time for this to be out there, to get some activity, to look and see how large the need is and if there are any issues with how it was initially proposed. I think 4 years is the right number there. Any objection? Any objection to 4 years? Gail.
I'm in favor of the 4 years. I think that sounds like a very reasonable amount of time. I'm wondering, like, are the doulas placed within an existing board? And, if the existing board that manages them is up for a six-year review or a two-year review, then let's just say they're up for a 2-year review, then when the 4 years rolls around, you would still do just that one license within the existing board. Is that the way I understand it, correct?
Uh, Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Gail. I can speak to that a little bit. It's a licensing program, and so it is independent of any board. And so I would say maybe the way to frame this would be if the license is going to fall, if it's a licensing program that DLI administers, then it's fine. You can just review that license. But if it is going to go under a board, then it would just follow with the regular review cycle of that board. And so if it was, let's say, I don't know, let's say that it was going to be housed in a new license that was going to be housed in Board of Medical Examiners. And Board of Medical Examiners at the time had 6 years to go. Then I would say it would fall under the regular Board of Medical Examiners review. Um, I don't know. I mean yeah, you bring up a good point that it can make it very tricky to time these reviews. Um, and I know that I don't want to speak for the legislature too much, but they're not a huge fan of sunsets because they are hard to manage. So
Thank you.
yeah, I think we could work on the language though, to say, like no more than 8 years or whatever it is, if you guys decide on a 10 year cycle. But I get what you're saying, because if a board was just reviewed and then the next session there's a new license type that goes under it, then that license is, could potentially not get looked at the for 8 or 10 more years.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you, Gail. That was an outstanding angle to consider there. I guess my question, Aaron, is: has there been enough time over my initial recommendation that we can't just add the 4 year to that and move on, or do we need to restate?
No, so for my notes, I said in the answer to one, ex reject a automatic sunset model. Instead, include a review process that integrates any proposed license into the process for review in the future. Include a 4 year review or sunset for any new license. So I think that's probably enough. I don't think I need anything more to develop that recommendation.
Standing, I would call for a vote then. All in favor of that recommendation, say aye.
I
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, hearing none. One down. Making progress. The second, should the recommendation select an 8, 10, or other cycle? I will just share that I used 8 in large part because I've sat next to Senator Zolnikoff a couple of times, and he's a big fan of 8. I personally have no strong feeling 8, 10, 12. Would like to hear from others if there's a strong feeling for one of these options. Gail, go ahead.
I have, in my thinking and reviewing the documents, I have favored 10 years. And I think a lot of that comes from making an assumption based upon the amount of work that I see has gone into preparing documents for our committee, what it would be like to prepare documents and get things ready. 8 years would just compress that a little bit and make it a busier time. So I'm strictly looking at that in terms of thinking that a 10-year cycle might be just a little bit easier on the workload and the people that have to prepare the documents, go through all the reviews. I think it will take a significant amount of time. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. John?
I have similar thoughts. So the reason we're meeting is we're trying to reduce burden. And this process, as we all have discovered, is burdensome. So I just have to go with in 8, if you have to review this every 8 years versus every 10 years, it's a little less burdensome to do it in 10 years versus 8 years. And I'm sure you've seen the amount of paperwork that's been produced by Erin over these last several months. And I bet she would like to not be looking down the down the road to this coming up again quickly. But I really have no heartache over either way. If the senator thinks 8 year, he sits in that legislative seat. And if 8 year is better for them, I have no heartache.
Excellent. Aaron.
Thank you. I just wanted one quick thing. Sorry, I keep thinking of all these things as you guys are talking through it. So, one thing that, and this doesn't need to be decided today, and if you trust the staff to come up with this, but it would be the like who goes first. And so I know like with the tax credit review, they're all listed, and I don't know exactly if it says that they shall be, these credits shall be reviewed in 2026 and these ones in 2028. I don't know if that's how it is, but if we will want to at least provide some sort of a guidance in this recommendation as to how the cycles are going to be set up. And so one thing I would recommend is to potentially look at what boards have had recent revisions, like Practice Act revisions and stuff. And there's a bunch of them that are coming up this year, or for next session, that the boards are already looking at, like if you're a sit on the construction committee, you know that the Board of Plumbing has requested a draft legislation for their Practice Act, and the Gail knows very well the Board of Pharmacy is doing the same thing. And so I would say that those ones that have been recently reviewed and vetted and had Practice Act revisions be put towards the later end, and ones that really haven't been looked at all in a while could be the first round. So something to keep in mind, and if you want, we can come up with a suggested schedule based on that work that we are doing with the boards, if you'd like, or you can decide yourselves. It's up to you. Just wanted to bring that up though.
Thank you, Aaron. I would highlight, and I'm working from recollection here. One of the legislators might be able to confirm or deny this, but I believe the tax credits are on a 10-year cycle because their language, I believe, says that they will be reviewed every interim ending with whatever the number is. And when you do it by 10, you're able to do that.
Mhm.
My other reaction would be that the task of assigning these two different classes is one that's just tailor-made for our artificial intelligence friends. With that, Senator Noland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Um, Things change. And as legislators, when we see the change and then we say, well, why can't we do this? We ought to wait for how many more years? No, so I don't care, 8 or 10. If Daniel wants 8, there's probably a reason behind his logic. I never try to figure out what his logic is, but uh, we and we all know this. We can't restrict what the next legislation is going to do. So we can make these recommendations, and we'll stick to them as good and as best as we can. I've done this long enough to know that we can change it if we didn't like it. But we also get heat from the people that we're working with, like you and construction companies. So we're only going to do it if we get the nod or the information. Um, so that's why 8 is fine with me. And if Gail still is a big proponent of only 10, I guess it doesn't really matter. So I could go either way.
Well, thank you, Senator Nolan. One of the things that I had in my head in writing my draft was just the fact that you stated, and I will reiterate, that the legislature has the power to do these things. And just because a board or license is on a 10-year cycle for review would not mean that that license only has the ability to make any change every 10 years. And if there was, you know, broad feedback from the general public against something, this would not prohibit the legislature from taking action before that. I guess with that, I would ask if a 10-year recommendation would be acceptable to the group. Hearing no opposition, I guess I will call for a vote. All those in favor of adopting a 10-year review cycle, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. All right, that is the second one down.
And
The
Mr. Chair, just for the record, Representative Teal has joined us now.
oh,
And then before you move on to the next question or discussion point, would you like staff to come up with the schedule for
I have
the
no.
for the next meeting? I mean, obviously you guys can look at it, but is that something you'd like us to do?
I would ask that the staff come up with a recommendation for that schedule for our discussion. The my only other personal input to that would be um, that the staff put some consideration into similar boards going at similar times.
Mhm. Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Next, should the review process include risk-based triggers for earlier or deeper review? The question that pops into my head is what that trigger could be, and I'm gonna think out loud here. In my head, the factors that we were looking at for each one of these would be looked at when the board came up in its normal cycle, and so they would not be, the process wouldn't be done by boards unless they were up for review. So having an earlier trigger, I don't know what that would be. Um, I'm neither strongly for nor against. Does anybody else have feelings in this area? And I see Aaron is bringing up another document for us. So.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I am because I just was curious what was said on this. Um, let's see here. 2-5 focused. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure exactly what why I put that in there. And I think, to Senator Nolan's point, the legislature has the ability to review anything they want, and any legislator, any of the 150 can bring a bill forward. And so I'm wondering if yeah. I mean, unless you wanted to put something where like there was something happened on the federal level, or it's a yeah, I don't really know. I don't remember why this was on in here.
Aaron, if I may, I think this might have come from the concept of a tiered review.
Oh, okay.
And just it feels as though that aspect, while we collectively liked the idea, um, I think the practicalities of it may have just become a bit too complex and
Okay.
fallen by the wayside.
All right. I will stop scratching my brain then.
And I guess the other question I would ask Aaron is I know in my proposal there was nothing that would prevent an earlier or deeper review. In the staff's version, are there any constraints there?
Mr. Chair, no. I did get some prompts from one of my colleagues, though, that some examples could be fiscal instability, or audit findings. And so I guess, yeah, those could be, if you want, we could pull something in to the recommendation that says, if there's significant audit findings on a performance audit by legislative audit, then it would trigger an earlier review. But again, anybody can do that anyways. So I don't know.
John, what are your thoughts?
I'm just thinking, does that sound right? So legislature can already do this,
Mhm.
right? I mean, there's nothing stopping them from doing that. So it just seems like that already exists.
It does.
Thank you. I was having a similar thought. Unless there's opposition, I would say that we skip making a recommendation on this one and just leave it as covered under the normal course of legislature.
Mhm.
Hearing no opposition. I'm going to move on to the next one. Number 4, should DLI data collection be the default first step with an audit review available only upon Economic Affairs Interim Committee request? I think that language mirrors what was in my proposal, and so I will just throw it out there that I put it in there. After our last discussion, there seemed to be some apprehension and some unknowns around the legislative uh, audit process and related costs. And so, as I wrote my proposal, I just gave the interim committee the expressed authority to request that, but did not require it and allowed for the department to do that first look. I guess the only other thing that I would offer to the group is that I also provided my draft to the staff to give a look at to see if the information I had listed was were things that could reasonably be collected. So, is there any strong feeling that we should require the information that's initially presented for all of it to go through that audit process, or would we be comfortable with the DLI collecting that information and given the power for additional review at the behest of the interim committee? John?
Yeah, your second option seems completely valid.
Thank you. Any other pushback or feedback? All right, hearing none, I would make a recommendation that the DLI does the data collection by default. And if requested, the Economic Affairs Interim Committee may request an additional audit of that information. All in favor of that recommendation, say aye, please.
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Same sign. Excellent. Number 5, should the final recommendation include a stated review principle that more restrictive licensing requirements require stronger justification? Aaron, if I may ask, I believe this was not in my under my umbrella. I would just ask what exactly that would look like.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. So I think this had to do with the survey question on the burden of proof standard of review. And so it's when you're looking, and maybe it had to do with, I'm trying to think back, there's been so many meetings, had to do with the discussion around specific qualifications. Like if this sunset of review process is going to include qualification review, exam review, that kind of stuff. And so maybe that's, and then how do you quantify that? Is that going to be, um, do the boards have to justify their qualification, like why they're requiring these qualifications at the time of review? I think maybe is the best way to present that. And so this is actually for basically the purpose statement of this that the the qualifications are meant to protect the public health, welfare, and safety, and not be overly burdensome and all that kind of stuff. And so I believe that was in the original language, the original statutes back in the 70s. And so maybe should that be also included? And so economic affairs has a little more direction as to, we need to scrutinize these parts of the report a little bit closer than some of the others. Does that help? I hope.
That helps immensely.
Okay.
I would just share that personally, it feels as though it's logical that if there is a more restrictive aspect, that there would be a stronger justification for having that. I guess my only question is, would we need to better define that, or is a statement at the level that we have before us sufficient?
Oh, go ahead,
Go
John.
ahead, John.
Oh, thank you. So which licensing groups would be stated to have a more restrictive licensing requirement? What groups are we talking about?
I'm gonna offer my understanding and then ask that Aaron correct anything that I have incorrect here. But I would just think that primarily as you're looking at, initial licensure requirements, if there are more of those at a deeper level, I'll use CPAs as the example. We require a degree, an exam, and experience. The levels of those being higher than others would mandate additional explanation for why they are.
And
Well,
I guess another
oh,
example, sorry to butt in, but just so you can kind of, something that I thought of is like the substantial equivalency discussion that we've been having, and we've standardized that in the last session, but there's still some there's qualifications like a number of hours of experience. And so during the review, that would be something that, if it's Montana is not substantially equivalent as far as the number of hours of experience required versus neighboring states, that could be considered a restrictive licensing qualification that should be justified, not saying that it has to be changed, but just justified as to why is Montana requiring 6,000 hours of experience for this license when neighboring states are only requiring four, something like that. That's just kind of what I would think of as examples of those. And I don't think that you need to actually list out things like that, but just have a general purpose statement that, those types of things, need to be justified. And we can come up with some sample purpose statements for you guys to review.
Well, John, thoughts?
yeah, yeah. Well, that's what I was thinking. This would be probably more inclusive of engineers and electricians, plumbers, medical industry, that type of um, group that's regulated a little more strictly. So that makes better sense. Thank you.
And Aaron, you brought substantial equivalency up, and so I might have a question for Mr. Bragg. If the current substantial equivalency process, um, I know that each board is required to look at the other states and determine which are and which are not substantially equivalent. I do not know if that process requires those boards to notate when we are not substantially equivalent what the topic or issue is.
Thank you, Chair Lloyd. Those substantial equivalency recommendations occur every single year. And when the boards are having those discussions, staff is prompting the boards to state on the record why a specific state would not be substantially equivalent. I don't know that that's reduced to writing currently, other than it's just included in the recorded minutes. But we are actively encouraging and sometimes even I know from some board members' perspectives, challenging them to state why state would or would not be substantially equivalent based off what Montana's current regulations are.
Thank you, Mr. Bragg. I think my just personal advice would be that if a board were approaching its review, they'd probably want to be ready to answer that question. Any other thoughts on this recommendation based on our chat here? My other request would be, Aaron, do you have you been writing something coherent that we might be able to vote on?
Mr. Chair, no. But I would say that if the committee wants to have a purpose, I think this is really coming down to like a detailed purpose statement. If you would like to have that in the final recommendation, then say yes and direct staff to come up with some options for you to when we finalize at the next meeting on
And
what exactly that purpose statement will look like, based on this discussion.
Senator Nolan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So some of the reasons we're even having these discussions are when we hear from other states, why is Montana so strict? Why are you guys making us do this? Why we want to have compliance? We want to be in compliance, but you're making it really difficult. As John mentioned earlier, our goal is to we want to get people in to do business in the state of Montana without all these government restrictions, which I agree with. But some of them, and I'm not going to use any specifically like California, for example, but I won't use them as an example. But if I was, are stupid. And so we said, okay, that's not something we're going to agree with. So you're going to have to comply if you want to do business here. And there were some specifics, and I guess I won't tell you the specifics, but we just said, no, you have to comply with what we want. And they do. I can't think of any in the last 10 years, maybe one. There could be more. Maybe Mr. Bragg would know, but they just said, well, heck with you guys. And we said the same. Yeah, right back at you. But anyway, that was my 2 cents.
Thank you, Senator Nolan. Uh, Aaron, if the staff are going to come back with a few options, is that just something we can do as a recommendation to ask the staff to do without a formal vote?
Yeah. Yeah. I'll come up with some purpose statements for you guys, and you can basically just decide at the next meeting how detailed you want it. So.
I'll say I personally, as chair, would be more comfortable with that, knowing that we just barely had our quorum today, and that would be a new thing to just we'll have that as one of the items on our agenda for our next meeting. So that takes us to number 6. Should the final product include a detailed list of required metrics and board questions as outlined in the proposal? I would offer, I was going back through notes from prior meetings and trying to come up with metrics that would answer the questions that I heard from the rest of the group. I do not know that my list is perfect, but I wanted to create a list just because I think better when I have something written down rather than an abstract, what could these things be? And so I believe Aaron is going to scroll through the laundry list of items. And I would highlight that I believe number 10 through I think like 24, 25 are in italics. Those are in the current report that Department of Labor and Industry provides each biennium. And so other things that were added in there are just some metrics on the number of meetings, the number of board members, and board vacancies. I know that board vacancies has been an issue of contention for some boards and not others. Just some processing timelines, because I know that in our discussions we've talked about how quick or how slow the process is. Um, and then looking here. The other things, and we were just talking about this, but the ability for folks in other states to obtain a license when they move to Montana, looking at just the what how many states are substantially equivalent, presumably making that process easy. And then looking at the both reciprocal licenses, those would be folks applying because they had a license in another state. And then the other topic that came up quite a few times were the provisional licenses. And were I evaluating these, I would just my personal preference would be just to know what's happening with them. And if the majority of them are approved, that's telling me that the provisional license is not creating a significant risk to the public. But if we were to have a board that reported back that they were doing provisional licenses, but those folks were not able to get and ultimately earn a license, that could be a red flag. And then, somewhat related to substantial equivalency, if you were doing a review of the license, you would want to know if there was a compact or not. I think one question that popped into my head just as I was looking at this is I didn't ask whether we were a member of the compact or not. That could be a helpful piece of information. And just in general, my list, again, I was thinking, what have we talked about, and what would the committee be most likely to ask? And my intent was to try and build a list of things that would limit the number of questions that would be asked during the review. Aaron, I guess the other thing I would offer is that those would be the metrics Department of Labor and Industry would report. There are also a number of questions that each board would be answering, and those I feel are important questions for boards to be asking about their operations. Um, on a fairly regular basis. And again, I would not profess this to be a perfect list, but this would be a list that if folks needed something to start with, this would be something to start with. Open to
Mr.
thoughts and reactions. Go ahead, Aaron.
Mr. Chair, as you start this discussion, just one thing to uh, please discuss is, if this list is going to be needed to be codified, if you actually want to put this in statute, or if this would be rule, I would recommend not putting all of this in statute because then you're beholden to it. Whereas if the recommendation included rulemaking authority for the department to flesh this out, and it could be in rule, and instead of in statute, that's just a little, because what if there aren't any answers to these questions, or what if new ones come up? Rulemaking is a little more flexible in being able to address those, moving targets, instead of having to wait 2 years and then re-amending the statute every time. And it's a pretty exhaustive list. So granted, this stuff is already in the governor's report, so that's great. The department can use that report and build off of that, if these are, the questions that and data sets that need to be provided. But I would recommend, in statute, doing kind of like what was done at the outset of this sunset review, is coming up with some general questions that need to be answered, and then allow rulemaking to fill in the blanks.
Thank you, Aaron. And I would mirror and say that at no point had I hoped or envisioned any of this being in the actual statute. I will open the floor to the group. I think the Aaron's question would be a good one, if we were to take this a step higher and have a set of, you know, overarching questions that need to be answered. What might those questions be? John?
Well, I don't know that I have any questions, honestly. Uh, it seems that most of the licensing programs probably function pretty well in the way that they do now, and adding a bunch of rules. And Aaron did a great job of explaining that this would end up being something that ends up in statute and gets dealt with every couple of years. That would seem to create a problem.
Thank you. Uh, if I may ask a question of Aaron, would I think along with our kind of overarching mission, I think that list of questions would be one that would be worthy of more discussion. Would staff be able to take and get us a sample for our next meeting to work off of?
Yes, I think there is, hold on just a second. I'll open this one up again. I think there was something in this one. Where is it? Oh, yeah, the core review topics. So this is something that we can put together as far as yeah, some language around what exactly would be in the statute for further review around these like core topics, because this I think is kind of what you have it in greater detail than what I have, just some bullet points. But also I would say that the questions um, that were in the original statutes, I think that's a good starting point. Because they're worded nicely to say, does the license protect the public health, welfare, and safety? Is it overly burdensome? All of those. I can't remember them off the top of my head. I think there were six. And that was what audit had to go on when they were doing their performance evaluations. And so we could mirror that.
Fantastic. I think for our next meeting, if you could include those,
Mhm.
and then we can vote on that aspect in our next meeting.
Okay.
I feel like we had one more question to tackle.
Yes. Let me get back to that. Oh, here we go. There you go.
Number 7, should the final recommendation identify statutory anchors for implementation, including existing economic affairs interim committee oversight, board reporting, and board review authority? I will ask Aaron to translate that question into plainer English. I won't put a grade level on it, but a little easier to understand.
Um, where would you like this housed? Do you want it housed within the existing MCA? Like I had, where was it? Title 2, Chapter 8, Part 4, which is procedure for creating new professional or occupational boards, review of existing boards. I mean, I think this answer kind of is based on other um, discussions that you had. Like if you wanted audit to take care of it, then it would need to go into a different MCA. Do you want this? Do you want to actually create, some statutory requirements, or do you want it to just be guidance, that kind of thing? So that's where that is.
Thank you for that explanation, Aaron. I'd open the floor for any thoughts or questions. Seeing none, my personal gut feeling is that Aaron, you probably know where this fits best into the MCA. I sure don't want to take a stab at placing this somewhere. Um, and I would, I guess, my gut is to defer to your judgment and have you bring to us in our next meeting, what your recommendation would be there.
Okay.
I will now just ask the group if we've gone through these questions. Is there anything else in this area either that we covered and you want to go back to, or something we didn't cover that you would like to before we go to, believe the only other thing we have on our agenda is public comment. Is that correct?
Mhm. And yes, and Mr. Chair, if I could just summarize the conversation for the record. So the next meeting is the last meeting, and I don't know what day it is, but it's in like 5 or 6 weeks. And so for that meeting, you'll want to really finalize all of the details in this proposal to present to the full task force on August 21st in Butte. So what I will prepare for that is for I will prepare recommendations that a new sunset review process be established within the MCA. And some of the details on it would be that it would be a review process, not a hard sunset. And it also integrates any proposed license into the process for review. And the cycle will be a 10-year review cycle for established licenses and boards, but a 4-year review for new licenses. And I could play with the language on that. There is no recommendation to include any kind of risk-based triggers for earlier or deeper review because that process is already established with the legislative authority and also the audits authority to review programs and licenses. And then DLI will be the first step for data collection. We're working in conjunction with the boards and present to the Economic Affairs Interim Committee. And then from there, the interim committee will have, I think there's 4 options. I'll put that into the recommendation. One of which is for an audit based on the initial report. The committee is interested in having a purpose statement that includes a stated review principle that more restrictive licensing requirements require stronger justification. And at the next meeting, I will provide some examples of purpose statements for this committee to adopt one of them. And then the final product so the final MCA, the bill draft, I guess, recommendation will be to add core review topics and questions that need to be addressed generally, but not have a detailed list in the MCA, allowing the department to do rulemaking for the details. And then the recommendation that I'll prepare for you will include suggested placement in the MCA and provisions. That's my summary.
I believe that to be a perfect summary. Aaron, I do have one question, just as you were going through there. The rules process include like the interim committee that has oversight, it has reviews the rules
Mhm.
in normal process, correct?
Correct. Yes, the Economic Affairs Interim Committee is the regulatory interim committee for the Department of Labor, and so they would have rule review rights for all of this,
Excellent.
which is helpful.
I was going to say, if I were that committee, it's critical that they have
Mhm.
that input. Thoughts from other committee members? John?
I'm just more of as I'm sitting here thinking about what we've talked about today, this number 5 that I have a better understanding now, since there's been so many meetings, you just continue to kind of, you forget stuff, don't you? As I'm thinking about it, we just recently had an announcement of a new company coming to Great Falls. At Janicki is the company. It's I think mostly aeronautics, space kind of stuff. 1,000 new jobs, engineers, CPAs, all types of professional folks that are going to need to be licensed. That company is leaving Washington, where they're expanding into Montana simply because they've been regulated out of Washington. So they're super happy to come here. I know the governor, when I talked to him last, was super excited about being able to make that announcement. And the CEO of Janike had specifically asked the governor uh, uh, a favor when this thing all shakes out is he's got to go in front of legislature in Washington and tell them why they left. So as I'm thinking about this licensing thing, if we've got more restrictive rules on like I said, engineers, CPAs, folks, other folks that this company will bring that need to be licensed. And these folks are coming from out of state because we do not have 1,000 other professionals in Montana to fill this role. It would be a shame that somehow they show up here and all of a sudden they've got problems with licensing.
Here, here. Aaron, if you could, I do not have the public comment language in front of me, and would appreciate if you could pop that on screen so that I could read.
Yes. We'll do that right there. There you go.
The subcommittee now offers the public in attendance an opportunity to comment on any public matter under the jurisdiction of the subcommittee that is not on the current agenda. The subcommittee cannot act, but will listen to comments and may ask staff to place the issue on a future agenda. The chair may limit the comment period to proceed with the subcommittee meeting. Public commenters should state their first and last name when offering comments.
I don't see anybody with their hand raised, Mr. Chair.
Excellent. With that, I would thank all in attendance for joining us today, and we will get together one more time before we meet in Butte. So thank you and have a great weekend, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.